Well, I went and did something I swore I was never going to do. If you want to hear all about it, keep watching. Hi, my name is Sarah, and welcome to my channel, which is all about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because I'm not going to talk a lot about sewing today. Instead, I'm going to tell you about my experience getting my color analysis done and my body typing analysis done. So I decided to get a full analysis done by Merriam Style. She is here on YouTube, and I will also link her website down in the description box. Now, this is not a sponsored video. I paid for the typing myself. The cost was $220 for the full report, and that includes getting your colors done, your body typing done, and also a little analysis of how the two interact and a little bit about your essence, which is kind of like your personality and how it comes across. But there are also separate packages that you can pay to just have one or the other done, so just your colors or just your body typing. The process is really very simple. I just uploaded about 30 pictures of myself in a variety of outfits and different lighting conditions. And about 2 weeks later, I did get my full PDF report with my analysis that I could browse at my leisure. Now, why did I decide to pay for this analysis when in the past I've said that I had no interest in getting my colors done or anything like that? So there's a few different reasons. First of all, I think I've mentioned in other videos that this year I'm really trying to hone in on defining my personal style, figuring out what I like and what is really unique to me. And although I feel like in general I have decent instincts in terms of what colors and silhouettes suit me, there were times when I would feel like I would put on an outfit and there was just something a little bit off about it that I couldn't quite figure out why it wasn't working for me. So I thought that by getting this analysis done, that it might give me some tools to help me when I can't figure out why something isn't working or why something is working and how I should do more of it. And now that I've gotten it done and I'm kind of learning as I go, I'm realizing that those reasons can be very, very tiny and nuanced and not completely obvious. So I do feel like getting the analysis done has been helpful to me in that area. The second reason why I decided to get this done is because I've been wanting to invest in some higher quality accessories like handbags and belts and jewelry and things like that. And I want to avoid some expensive mistakes. So I don't want to buy anything that I'm going to be tired of in a year or a color that just really doesn't suit me or a style that I'm just not really going to reach for. And the same thing with pattern and fabric purchases. I want to make good decisions about what I purchase, and then I'm going to be using those things to create garments that will last in my closet for years, not something that I'm going to get tired of after one season. And by having better knowledge about what colors work for me and what styles work for me in a more classic sense, then hopefully I'll be able to make clothing that is less trendy and it's going to be something that will stand the test of time. So let's talk about the color analysis first. So Merriam style uses a slightly different system than the typical seasonal style. I will kind of frame it in terms of the seasonal colors because I just feel like that's what people are more familiar with. The reason that I chose this particular person to do my colors over someone else is because I did a lot of research and I wanted to make sure that I was going to choose an analyst that had a lot of experience typing non-white women. Now, I know that everybody has good intentions, and I'm not saying that anyone would deliberately mistype me or something, but just a lot of the color analysis people that I've seen that seem to be fairly popular, a lot of their clients seem to be white women, and I just wanted to make sure that I was getting someone who was more familiar with women of color, who had experience with it. And Miriam has a ton of videos on her YouTube channel where she types different people from all different backgrounds, and I just felt a little bit more confident that she was going to do a good job and kind of understand the nuances of non-white skin. And another style blogger that I really like, her channel is Daily Helen. I'll link it down in the description box below. She got her colors done by Miriam, and Helen is Asian. So I felt pretty confident in going with this particular person over someone else. Now, Miriam's color system is called Artistic License. And she, like I said, she does have a little bit of subtle differences between her and the seasonal typing system, but she typed me as cool and radiant with olive leaning undertones. Essentially, what I have translated that to is that she basically said that I'm a deep winter. A lot of the colors that she recommends for me overlap with that color palette. Where she does differ a little bit is that according to Miriam, basically all really warm tones, like all yellows and all oranges, are not going to suit me and I should avoid wearing them close to my face. Whereas my understanding of the seasonal color system is a lot of them have more of a system where like you can wear any color, you just have to wear the right temperature of that color. But Miriam is more of the mind frame that I should really avoid all warm colors. So like I said, the yellows, the oranges, the warm reds, and the really warm neutrals like beiges and browns. So essentially, I lean cool and I have olive undertones. So I can wear things like olive greens and gold jewelry and rose gold jewelry, but I'm really going to be most flattered in cooler tones, and also I'm high contrast, so I look better in brighter or darker tones rather than pastels, which is something that I totally knew before. I always felt like when I tried to wear pastels that I looked really washed out, but I didn't necessarily understand why that was. And according to Merriam, it's not so much about my warmness or coolness, but it's just because my contrast levels are too high for that. So according to Merriam, my best color that will flatter me the most is an eggplant purple or a plum, which is basically the color of the top that I am wearing. It's kind of funny because I think that I have this piece and then I might have one other piece in my closet that is in that color, but it's not one that I typically gravitate towards. And I spent some time thinking about it. I don't dislike the color. I like the color, but it's just never been one that's really spoken to me and said, yes, I should wear that. And I was talking to my husband about it a little bit, and he was basically like, isn't that why you paid a professional to like give you advice like that? And I'm like, yeah, actually it is. So I'm looking forward to trying more of this color and seeing how it works for me. And in addition to this color, Miriam really recommends tones for me, like bright and deep blues, all purples, magentas, cooler tone greens. And then my best neutrals are pure black and white, navy, and charcoal gray. So I feel like for the most part, those were colors that I gravitated towards a lot anyway, but it's just nice to have that reinforcement that those colors do indeed flatter me. And I'm also supposed to be most flattered by silver jewelry. Now I do prefer gold and I have mostly gold jewelry. I don't have a ton of silver, but it's kind of like the purple tone where I'm not against silver. It's just not something that I naturally gravitated towards in the past. Now, I will revisit this color analysis and how I feel like it's going to affect my life more going forward, more towards the end of the video. Now let's move on to talking about the body typing analysis. So Merriam's system is called body geometry, but it is essentially very, very similar to the Kibbe typing system. I'm not going to go into a great detail about Kibbe because it's this whole rabbit hole that you can follow if you want to. But essentially, Kibbe's system is where you analyze your underlying bone structure, whether you're more sharp and angular or broader or delicate, and then also how the flesh lays on top of your bones. So whether you're more curvy or more straight, more muscular or more thin, and how you should dress should mimic your natural body shape. So I always really liked this idea because I feel like the traditional perspective of like the fruit system, where everybody is, no matter what your shape, you're supposed to try to mimic an hourglass. Whenever I tried to do that, I always felt like I was wearing someone else's clothes because I'm not an hourglass and it doesn't make sense to, in my mind, for me to try to be something that I'm not. Whereas this system is all more about enhancing what features you naturally have and mimicking that in your clothing, and that creates a very harmonious look. So in Miriam's typing system, I am what she calls a mixed soft, which is basically the Kibbe equivalent of a soft gamine. And that just means that my bone structure has a mix of different features of angular and soft, and that the flesh on top of the bones tends to be more soft. And when I first learned about Kibbe's body typing system, probably like 5 or 6 years ago, I could not figure out on my own what I was supposed to be. I think there's like 13 different body types, and I just couldn't figure out from taking the quiz and reading the descriptions which category I fell into. And there were a couple of reasons why at that time I thought I could not be a soft gamine, which I will get to in a few minutes. But in a nutshell, the soft gamine body type tends to be very petite, very short limbs, but with some broader features, like you can have wide hands and feet, you can have broader shoulders. You might have some angles to your facial structure, but on top of that structure, your flesh tends to be more soft. So, like, sort of more roundly, fuller face. You might have a fuller bust line, fuller hips, and your arms and legs tend to be more on the fleshy side. Now, when I was first trying to figure this out on my own and I decided that I absolutely could not be a soft gamine, it was because of two things. The first one is that according to KB, soft gamines usually have large round eyes, and I do not. I have very small eyes. And the second part is because they tend to have a fuller bust line, and I'm very flat chested. So in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not curvy. I can't be a soft gamine. But for the soft gamine, it's not like you're not a romantic, which is another body type, which is more of like the Beyonce or the Marilyn Monroe. I'm not that classic hourglass. I'm not super curvy. I do have some of that sharpness to me, but I just tend to be a little bit more rounded, a little bit more feminine, rather than being more angular. I also think that I was pretty resistant to the idea of being a soft gamine because this particular type is considered to be the most childlike or doll-like, and I just am very, very resistant to that idea. I don't want to be that. And initially, when I got this result from Merriam, I was a little bit frustrated and just not really liking the idea of being a soft gamine. Because at first I felt like, well, I have to dress like a little kid. But that's not actually what it means. I've had a week or two to really sit on it and think about it, and I'm sort of getting more used to the idea. And what I'm coming to understand is that being a soft gamine and dressing in lines that suit my body doesn't mean that I have to dress like a child. It means that when I wear silhouettes that work for my body type, I actually don't look like a child. I look normal. Whereas if I tried to dress in someone else's lines, if I tried to be more minimal or more masculine, that's actually when I look like a child because those lines don't suit my natural form. So it's definitely taking me some getting used to, and I'm still working on accepting it and thinking about it, but I'm definitely approaching it more from a perspective of being open-minded about really trying out these silhouettes that are supposed to work well for me. So a few of the recommendations for soft gamines that are supposed to be really good on me are like very fitted tops with high necks, collar details, lots and lots of detail. Because I have that mixture of angular and soft, I'm supposed to have staccato lines, which means I'm supposed to do a lot of color blocking, breaking up the body into separate parts rather than doing like an all one minimal look. And this is also another thing that sort of the light bulb went off in my head of maybe this is why I don't really like dresses, because I've been told my whole life because I'm short that wearing a dress or a jumpsuit is supposed to be really flattering on me because it creates one long vertical line. But according to the Kibbe system, that's actually the opposite of what I should be doing, that my body needs that energy of the color blocking, of breaking up the top half from the bottom half. And that's actually what works better for me. And so I think kind of instinctively that's why I prefer separates over dresses. So some of the other recommendations are using a lot of belts, wearing really close fit pants with tapered and cropped hemlines, wearing tapered things around the wrists like cuffs, and just generally a lot of detail on my clothes. So basically, I should be avoiding a minimal silhouette and like really using things with more detail and more interest in my garments. And because I am a soft gamine, I can add a little bit more feminine details like ruffles or gathers, things like that, but not anything too overwhelming, not anything with too much volume. And sticking to fabrics that are a little bit more softly structured. So nothing that's too loose with it completely all drape and nothing too stiff either. So what am I going to do with all of this information? Like I said, I've been sitting on it for about a week or so and really thinking about the results and how I think that they apply to me. I'm actually really excited about sewing again. I know that I talked about how I'd lost my sojo and I've been kind of fighting to get it back, but it has been a little bit of a struggle. And I would say I'm still not 100% back and like super excited about sewing, but this process has actually made me really excited to think about what kinds of clothes that I want to make in the future. It's definitely making me more interested in sewing clothes again. But I do not want to do the thing that I feel like a lot of people do is when you get your typing done, you go through your closet and you get rid of all the stuff that you think doesn't work for you, and then you start over again from scratch. I don't want to do that. I actually want to do it in a very deliberate way and do some experimentation to see how I feel about the rules and how I want to interact with my own personal style with those rules and what I want to change, if anything, and like how I'm going to approach it in the future. I'm just a very deliberate person and I don't like to make snap judgments or impulse decisions. And so I've kind of set up a little experiment for myself where I have been filming myself every single day, trying my best to wear my lines and wear my colors and see how I feel in those outfits. And then I'm going to do a second week of experimentation where I do the opposite, where I wear colors that are not supposed to be good for me and styles that are not supposed to be good for me. And then I'm going to compare the two and see if I really feel like I looked better in the first week rather than the second week. And I am filming that as I go, so I will have a second video about that process. So if you're interested in seeing how that experiment worked out, now would be a really good time to hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload new videos. So thank you for joining me on this journey, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have in the comments.